Welcome to the Bad Boss Journal, the dope podcast where you can anonymously say exactly what you think about your bad boss, toxic work environment, and find out how to handle it.
Welcome to an episode of the Bad Boss Journal. My name is Michelle.
And I'm Ava.
And we are here today with Jack.
Hi, Jack. Welcome.
Oh, hi. I don't know when I'm supposed to talk, so you just point at me or something.
No worries. So, yeah, Jack, why don't you tell us your bad boss story?
Okay, well, first, just a little joke. If there's people in the military out there that have worked in like military environments, the worst bad bosses out there are anybody from the Navy. No offense to Navy people. They have a unique way of doing things, and I don't appreciate it. And then the second one is never work for somebody in your family.
Oh, yes, 100%. 100%.
Or have family employees.
Yeah.
And if you give your family money, don't expect to ever see it back, and don't get mad when they don't give it back. So those are my life lessons. So when you first contacted me about this, I got thinking, okay, I've had a few bad experiences with bosses. I don't think anybody who's ever had a boss hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But my bad boss story is the good boss.
Interesting.
So you may see where I'm going with this. So I had a boss that would always come to me and say, "Hey, Jack, you're really great at this. I really rely on your skills. Oh, here's some more responsibility. Oh, your work is, top notch. You never make any mistakes." And the boss is always nice to you and never, ever criticizes you.
Mm-hmm.
So you think you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I thought, number one. And in fact, during the time that I had this boss, my organization put me up for awards. And I got the top award for like the quarter. And then I got the top award for the year. And then the next year, I got the top award for that year as well. And I thought, man, I must be doing something right, doing something pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Get up on myself. First time ever that I actually felt good about myself. But that's a whole other story and maybe a different podcast. Yeah. And my therapist isn't on right now. Anyway, so I thought I was doing good. And if I get talking too fast, just stop me.
No, you're good.
So I thought, my boss is great. My boss loves me. I don't know if I'm the favorite, but we have a good time. Then it came time for my annual evaluation, which I wrote. I know most people have to write their own, but to me that's a foul. I always write my subordinates' appraisals, or at least take their inputs and don't use them word for word. But I put all the good things that I did with examples and numbers and impact and how I, save the organization money or save the organization time, and all the good things that my boss had been telling me that I was doing throughout the year, both years actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I filled out the whole form, and then I left the bottom line that the boss is supposed to fill out for the boss to fill out. And in that, you kind of give them terminology like number one of X people that do this. So I get the report back that, again, I wrote and left the bottom line for the supervisor. And it was just something very vanilla. I'll call it a vanilla turd, because that's really what it is.
Right.
Great person, works hard, like to have him around, select him for better things.
It's like when you get that. It's like when you get the end of the year book, and it just says "Have a great summer."
Yeah, from your best friend, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you never, ever, ever see them again.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So tangent. So this boss, a great person. I still think highly of. Can I use gender? Can I say her?
Yes, you can use gender.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't want to single out anybody. Great person, a great leader. I think. I just think I got a bad rap or a bad something from. Maybe they were just better people. I don't know. So I'm still on the tangent. So in my current job now, See, that was in the military, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
My current job now, I work for the government still, just as a civilian, civil servant, where I can sleep most of the day and take the taxpayers' money and buy boats and cars and all that. Anyway, my boss that I'm talking about is on the board of directors for a subcontractor that works for our organization. So I think it's kind of funny, but I hold no malice. Let's anyway, back from the tangent. So I get my report back.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that I go on tangents a lot.
No,
Ava,
okay.
you know this. So I get a report back and I look at it and I'm like, this is a vanilla turd. So I go into the boss before I sign it and say, okay, this is a decent eval. I mean, it says all the good things that I did, but I was kind of expecting something stronger. In the future, how do I get it to be stronger? The boss looked at me and goes, oh, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Only the cream of the crop gets sent to our organization. So just keep doing what you're doing. And that is the good boss that ended up being a bad boss.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I could see that.
And that happened on multiple occasions, in fact. But these two people were acquainted with each other, so maybe they went to the same boss school of, build your people up, don't criticize them, and just tell them when they're doing good and everything will work out fine. But, after a couple bosses like that, you just kind of get run down because you're thinking, I'm doing all the work and someone else is getting the glory. I'm a glory seeker, apparently. And then when it comes time for the promotion or the better job, someone else gets it because you did their work for them.
Right.
And after about 20 years of that, you get to thinking, I really want to hurt myself and others. So you look for a different job outside of government, and you land back in the government. Oh no. That's a story. That's another story. Again, therapist on this other on the other computer screen that I use.
So, do you think that the good boss that turned into the bad boss? Do you think it was intentional, or I guess
I think it's intentional. I do that with my assistant. So I with the certain once I got to a place where I was managing others, what I realized was when I praise them for what they do well, they tend to want to work harder, right? Now, I think the key though is that you follow through with that. But a lot of times it's just lip service by some of these good bosses, right? Like they do it with no intention. So that's kind of what I am dealing with my current boss, who's amazing. Love her. She really that's what I think, right? Like she respects me. She likes the work I do. And yet when I'm asking for help, like I'm like, oh, I need part-time. Like I'm a PRN. So it's kind of like a contractor. And so you don't get any benefits. And so I was like, all I want is for me to become part-time. So I would have to work 20 hours, which is annoying. But like, if I did that, I would get health insurance, get benefits, things like that. So when it came to that, they were like, oh no, but I can't. Let me see what I can do. So it's like like you said, right? The whole time they're like, you're great, you're great, you're great. But when it came time for something that mattered to me, it was like, oh, we need to look at the numbers. So I'm like, ultimately, it doesn't matter how good I am. You're still telling me that I'm not good enough, right? That kind of is what you feel like as an employee. Even though I do understand, like there are very strict finances, there's very strict budgets where I work. Like, I mean, all jobs do, but this one specifically was hit very hard during, Corona. So yeah, I mean, they're using that as an excuse, and I do get it, especially because we are a sister company to this major organization. Or we're like a sister organization of the major organization. So there's a lot of hierarchy to go to. But yeah, I can see that. So for me, when I do that, because I don't like, it's funny because my boss tells me I have multiple bosses, but I have like one boss who's always like, you have to be strong, you have to be mean, you have to force people to do things. And I was like, I don't do that because I've noticed that doesn't really work. like it may work in the beginning, but at some point it won't. And I'd rather, build people up. But the good thing is you get loyalty and you get people who want to work harder. But you have to make sure, I think, if you are a true good boss, right? Like, so that's like a fake good boss, like what we were talking about.
Mhm.
I feel a true good boss but would be somebody who could follow through with that and do their best, so that they're not only being kind and uplifting and positive and morale boosting, but like they're actually following through at the end as well, like bringing you up with them, right?
Right. And I've noticed that, when I'm the boss, I can be just as bad of a good boss,
Hmm.
because I try to build people up. I try to help them have their needs. Try to, when it comes to report time, actually give them good feedback and say, this is where you're good and this is where you need to improve.
Hmm.
But a lot of times that can be perceived as soft, especially in the military.
Right.
Because I'm not a type A person, not in the slightest. Maybe I was when I was younger, but now I have medicine that just makes me like, whatever. But yeah, but it was frustrating to me that I would work so hard to get my people the recognition that they deserved.
Mm.
Because in that same period of time that I was talking about, where I was getting the officer of the year, my people that worked for me, and I had four specific award packages that I wrote,
Hmm.
and those four won at the whole Air Force level. I mean, they were the top in their category for
Wow.
everybody in the Air Force, and so that really made me feel good about me.
Hmm.
I mean, that's an anecdotal joke, but and so I kind of lay my standards on top of other people, and I kind of expect them to do the same thing. And maybe my expectations were a little bit skewed. Like, well, if I do this, then other people should do this too.
Hmm.
And again, that's for my therapist to unpack as well.
Well, do you think, and this is both for Jack and for Michelle, do you think you grew or did not grow in the environments where you were not getting criticism? Does that make sense?
So where I was being praised.
Yes, where you were being praised all of the time,
Hmm.
not given any criticism. Do you think that helped you grow either in your field or as a leader or manager? Or
Oh yeah, I think I did personally. Yeah, because I would try to go above and beyond to show them like, oh yeah, like I am as good as you think I am. Like you're giving me this opportunity, so I'm gonna run with it. Where because right before her was a boss that was very volatile. It seemed like where things were good, nothing was said, left me alone. But as soon as I did something wrong, that's when I'd hear. Right, so it's quiet, 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 and then something I did was a little off, or something that was not to the person's liking, and I would get chewed out. And so I'd be afraid all the time of doing something wrong. Whereas with this other boss, like I'm constantly trying to seek new ways to lessen her plate. That's like I'm literally doing that psychological thing and that's why I do what I do with my, um, with the people that I manage now, where I try to be as helpful. But like I think because I am in both, like I'm kind of tandem, right? Because I'm doing multiple jobs, and so it's not just in one job where I have a hierarchy and then the bottom. It's I have one job where I have like this boss, but then I'm managing a whole bunch of people, and then I have this other job where I have a boss, and then I just manage myself. So it's like because I get those like dual roles, I feel like that makes me more mindful. I don't think that it's a normal thing because most people don't have multiple jobs. I mean they do, but it's not in this type of environment, I feel. But yeah, I think it definitely made me feel like I could do more. Whereas the other one, it was very restrictive. It was always about how do I not, like, will I get in trouble? Will I have to ask? What will happen if I ask? Like, how do I get this yes? Like, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know about Jack though.
Yeah, for me, I like the positive feedback. If I get like negative criticism, then it kind of drives me down a little bit. And if it's founded, then it does help me, the criticism. But if it's criticism that I perceive as, this person's just nuts, they don't know what they're talking about, then that'll just make me spiral. But
Mm,
if it's the good criticism or the good feedback, then I do want to be better. I do want to show them that, yeah, I'm deserving of that praise.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that little thing in the back of my mind that says, oh, am I doing enough? And so another tangent, I had another boss. I think he was the boss right before the good, bad boss. I had a couple individuals that worked for me that were kind of having some problems with fitness and other things. So I was really working with them to get things right. And I'm not sure why. It always happens that, if your people are out of shape and can't pass their PT test, then it's your fault. Like, okay. But anyway, so I was having some particular problems, and my boss called me into his office. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. And he goes, Dan, sit down. You suck and you're fired.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, what? He's like, I'm just kidding. I was like, but for the rest of the day, I was like,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Anyway, you scared me to death.
Oh my gosh, the anxiety I would have after, and like the rush after, like, oh my goodness, I would be shaking all day.
Yeah,
Even if it was a joke and we laughed, like I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a PTSD episode right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh my goodness, there must be something that I'm doing wrong. I don't know what I did, but it had to have been something.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, that's how I view life anyway. But again, my medication and my therapist really help out.
I think a lot of us, especially in like the generation from like halfway through millennial to Gen Z and onward, we love praise because of like just the way we were raised. And I feel like it's getting less and less, hopefully less and less, because, the way like people are maybe being parented now. But like, when you're young, you're constantly praised when you're so cute and like little and toddling around. And then those praises stop coming, right? And then so like for the rest of your life, you're constantly like seeking that because like, like I truly think that there is some sort of connection with that. But like that's why there's like this whole like parenting movement where they talk about not praising children. Like you praise like the thing they did specifically, but like there are some people who won't even praise kids, period, because they're like, you don't do it from babies, you don't do it from children, like you just make them praise their own work like that. And I can understand why, because it's like you end up overworking yourself just to get that good job, or like just to get that validation that you are good enough when most of us are, and
And that's why I was asking you and Jack that question, because I wondered if the praise that you got from your bosses was almost like a false sense of security, right? Like it was like this, like you were in this little protective bubble, and then when they couldn't deliver in terms of where it really counted, that's when you were kind of like hit in the face with criticism or just the nothingness. So yeah, so that's why I was thinking about that, and especially Michelle, as you said, in regards to like parenting and how there's been this conflicting theories of praise versus criticism, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking back to the parenting question, we always, not that I'm a perfect parent by any means, but we try to never, and this could go in the workplace too, never criticize the person themselves. Hey, that was a stupid thing that you did. Maybe you should have not been driving like that in the rain on those tires of that truck that we just bought.
Very specific.
Now,
a little too specific.
There's a sad tree and a truck in the junkyard. But anyways, but going back to the boss, you hear those good things, and then when it's time for the evaluations, or when it really counts, they have to sign their name to something, and then there's silence. That's when it's a little more difficult to accept and to handle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the thing that bothered me, the good boss that told me I was fired, he was just having a good time. But the good bad boss and another boss that I had 2 jobs later eventually were on the same board, and they were going to select the leaders, the new commanders for the squadrons for my career field. And I thought, I have a pretty good chance because they've seen me work. They know they know me. They know how I operate.
Mhm.
This should be, this should be great. And so in the organization I was in, there were 12 of us that were eligible.
Mhm.
Well, 11 people got selected to move on to the next step, and one person didn't.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, I know, is Jack. Poor Jack. And I was like, huh,
Oh, that would suck though.
it sucked. So, well, that day, because the way I found out, and my boss was 2 offices down, hop, skip, and a jump. The way I found out was an email to everybody.
Oof.
And now, fortunately, the email didn't say these people were selected and this person wasn't. It just said these people were selected, which was, but I knew my name wasn't on there.
Right.
So the minute I got that email, I shut my computer off, grabbed my bag, left the building, got on the bus, went home, and crawled on the couch and in a fetal position. And then the next day, I sent my boss a message. I said, "Hey, any feedback on this?" Or I said, "Well, I was kind of passive aggressive." I said, "Can I expect any feedback on this?" And he couldn't understand why I was, miffed that he wasn't
Huh.
saying anything.
Wow.
So anyway, I should
Do
probably talk to
you
my
feel
therapist
like
about
it's
that one
interesting
too.
that we're no, add that. Yeah, definitely add that to the list. Um but like what like having this conversation is really enlightening for me because I feel like there are so many similarities to being a boss and being a parent, right? Like it's like, yeah, you could just be a parent, right? Like you could just be a parent. You can, it's whatever. Like you can just kind of sail your way through it and just make sure that your children don't die and just like call it a day. And then like but then like if you're a bad parent and you're constantly abusing, like being verbally abusive and mentally abusive and all that, like there's that aspect. And then if you're trying to be like a good parent, but then all you do is praise them and just never say no, like they end up turning into these turds that like just think that they, everything, they deserve everything and they don't know how to take care of themselves, like that type of stuff. So it's like, it's so difficult trying to be like a good parent, right? Like being a mindful parent, I guess. Like for me, being a good parent is being a mindful parent, like constantly thinking of like that long term, like what would happen, right? And I feel like now that I am in like that boss seat, like that's something that I'm constantly stressing out about. I feel like the people who are bad bosses though don't stress. That's the problem, right? Like it's like those parents who like, I remember I had a friend who was telling me how she gave her like 7-month old like those. You remember those marshmallow peanuts? They're just basically just
Oh, oh, those are
cancer
The
delicious.
in a
orange
peanut
ones?
shape.
Those are
Yes.
delicious.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, but she would give the baby that. And I was like, I remember just being like, that is just like diabetes in the making. I don't even know how to. So it's like, I'm not saying that that means like you're a horrible parent, but like there are these things that, it's just like the choices we make. It's like coming into like the whole boss area for me where I'm constantly trying to think of like how I treat the people that I work with so that they feel good, but I also want to still be respected enough that when I tell them to do something, they'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult because they're not they're not your kids. Like,
Right. So another like parenting example, but it could be for bosses.
yeah.
So my son is 18. Well, he was 17 last year. You do the math. Uh, anyway, his friends would come over, and which isn't a problem, and they would do stuff and play around. And I was talking to him one day. I'm like, you guys need to do this and this and this. And he said, well, my friends won't listen to you. I'm like, well, why not? Well, they think you're soft. And that got me thinking, okay, why do they think I'm soft? It's
Mm-hmm.
because my employee or my son, whatever, took his impression of how I treat him and parlayed it on to how he thinks that I'd treat the other employees. Oh,
Mm.
because he's nice to me, he's going to be soft. So that's probably another
Oh
example of
yeah.
bad bossing.
Oh yeah. 100%. Like it's constantly for me these days. It's like I'm trying to uplift a lot of people who felt like they were kind of in the sidelines. But then I'm like, oh, I have to be careful though, because then you know what I mean? Like there's this like constant juggling to make sure that they're doing things, and not thinking that I'm just letting them do whatever they want, right? Like there's deadlines that we need to meet and all these things. So it's like, it's so hard. It's so hard to be a good boss. And I think that's why there's so many bad bosses, you know?
Well, there's a lot of training that people go through, how to be a good leader, how to be a good boss. But you kind of wonder how does that really sink in? People just go, okay, this is
Right.
the checklist on how to do it, instead of kind of reading your audience
Mm,
and saying, okay, this person needs this kind of boss,
right.
but this
Right.
person needs this kind of boss.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so you need to massage the way you do things with different people,
Right.
because the worst bosses are consistently bad.
Mm,
They're just bad.
right.
And then the best bosses, that sounds weird, but are inconsistent, because
Mm,
they can treat somebody who maybe doesn't get stuff done on time.
right.
They can treat them differently than the shining star that does everything right, and then
Right.
that boss can help them get the products in that he
Right.
wants.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a tug and pull.
Yeah. It's the situational leadership model. So I actually
Mm,
used to teach that. So it's based on your leadership is based on your subordinates' capability, knowledge, and will to develop, and you have to, as a leader, figure out where they're at and where they need to be and help them get there.
hmm.
Right. I think we have to remember that leadership is preached to everybody. You got to be a leader. You got to be in charge. You
Right.
got to be on the top. Not everybody's a leader. Not
Yeah.
everybody can be in charge.
100%.
Not everybody wants to.
Yeah.
Like in my current organization, there's about 900. Well, I don't know how many people are in our organization. About 90% of them, they're just happy to be where they are. They've,
Right.
they're retired from the military. They're in civil service. They could care less about that. They want to do their job. They love their job, but they don't want to get promoted. They don't want to be a
Hmm.
supervisor anymore. They've been
Right.
there, done that, and it's just great that they can do their job and people leave them alone and they get stuff done, and the bosses just get out of the way.
Hmm.
So not everybody can be a
Yes.
boss, but
Agreed.
but sometimes you're thrust into that situation where you have to be. And so that situational leadership model, I think, is something that I would try to do.
Yeah.
But I'm perfect and everybody else is a bad person.
And
And
on
that's
that
why I'm in
note,
therapy.
I think that's like a perfect place to end our episode. What do you think, Ava?
I think so as well. Thank you, Jack, so much for joining us. We have loved talking about your good
So
boss, bad
fun.
boss
Yeah.
story.
Yes, hopefully I didn't monopolize the conversation, because I tend to do that, and I get talking and I blah 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 blah, blah. And then I start saying inappropriate things, which I didn't curse, and I didn't say any jokes about the things you're not supposed to talk about in public. So I think I did pretty good.
Oh, you
But
did. This was so fun.
so anytime you need that comic relief, just give me a call and we'll.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Bad Boss Podcast. I'll see you next time from me, Ava, and Michelle.
Michelle. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nobody can see me waving. Goodbye.
Do you have a bad boss experience you'd like to share with us? Visit our website, thebadbossjournal.com, to submit your story. You can also support our show by checking out our merch and more on our website. Thank you so much for listening to the Bad Boss Journal.